Painting with Menoth John is presented in Super Legitivision. Super Legitivision, the future of podcasting. It's .com.
Hello, I'm
Menoth John.
and I'd like to welcome you. First of all, let me take just a moment to thank you for allowing me back into your homes. If this is your first time with us, let me extend a personal invitation for you to drag out your
miniatures
and paint along with us each week. Let's go over to the canvas here and let's get started. I believe, every day's a good day when you paint. I believe, it'll bring a lot of good thoughts to your heart. I believe, every day's a good day when you paint. I believe, it'll bring a lot of good thoughts to your heart. Let's build a happy little cloud. Let's build some happy little trees. There are no limits here. You start out by believing here. You can almost paint with anything. All you have to do...
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, all you got to do is grab a paintbrush and stick it wherever the sun doesn't shine. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Painting with Menoth John All-Day Spectacular. We are in what I want to call the tenderloin of this particular show. We are literally living life on the edge and then some. So I am, of course, Menoth John. I don't have a stitch of clothes on except what's on my head, and that's my underwear. And we are doing it for juvenile diabetes. Gonzo, what's our total right now?
I was just going to check that because the last time I checked, it was $1,299.
Please, somebody give me $1 so that I can put my clothes back on.
We are still at $1,299.
Okay, so literally, if I don't, I'm going to put my clothes back on anyway, and I'll take it back off at $1,300. I don't know what to do. So, we've been starting each of these hours off with donating money, and recognizing our patrons and especially our patrons. So first off, I think I'm going to give a big shout out to Zosha Simpson. Zosha, hey, this one's for you. Hey, Ron. Idris Ann Trammell, super sweet that you're a patron here. Thank you for being part of the show. Jim Goff, you're a patron. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Super high five to you. Jason Bush, hey, we couldn't do the show without you. I need more beer. I'm gonna put that out there. And then the last one this hour is Daniel Harwood. Daniel, thank you very much. Without you, we could not possibly do this show. Appreciate the patrons. Appreciate everything you bring to the party. Want to super appreciate all the people who have given to PWMJ all day for juvenile diabetes. John and Gonzo, I don't think this could have possibly gone better. Do you?
Yes.
No, I mean, maybe a little more clothes for you, but hey,
I'm nice and warm and comfortable. I don't know about you.
I'm fucking cold. I'm really cold.
So I have to say this just so everyone out there knows. DC is the one who donated $29, so he needs one more dollar to get his clothes back on.
He's a terrible person, that DC.
DC is awesome. I already gave him a high five.
Yeah, okay.
Because he deserves a high five.
That's great. Okay,
Because
so
that's next level trolling. You have to admit, John. It's
high level.
Next level.
There's no two ways about it. But ladies and gentlemen, we are super excited excited in a way that I can only look down and help you visualize. Is to have Will Pagani on the show.
Hey.
Yay!
How's it going, guys?
Will, there was a time that I would have guessed that there would be no possible way I would have a Privateer Press employee on this particular show, and this had to be the way that we broke that streak.
Well, I'm glad to know that because I'm here, you have your underwear on your head. So, cheers to that.
Hey, woohoo, Ron.
Ron.
So, Gonzo was good enough to help coordinate getting the necessary paperwork done so that we could submit the questions, understand all the questions, get all the questions so that we could read them. And we wanted to ask you a lot of questions about not only the 2017 document. But we also wanted to understand kind of the CID. Hang on for a second. I got the goddamn Twitch up here. We got to stop that. I wanted to bring up the questions.
Sure.
We want to talk about Steamroller 2017. We want to talk about the CID. And I know that you sent me something this morning, didn't you, Gonzo?
Yes, I sent you everything that you need to say.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you for giving me a script.
Because I knew you would be drunk by this time.
That was to be
impressed.
that was to be expected. So Gonzo, why don't you lead this off with Will? Thank you once again, Will, for being a part of the show. We're super excited you're here. Gonzo, you're first.
Yes. One, thanks a lot again, Will. I know this is a little bit of an effort and you had things you had to do. We had a really important question, and it's mostly for us nerds. Where do babies come from?
God, I know that one.
All of us nerds just want to know, where do babies come from?
Where do babies come from? I don't know. I haven't had any yet. But if I had to guess, probably something to do with the Circle of Ouroboros. They just like fall out of trees and stuff.
Oh, okay.
I have on good authority that that's where they come from.
So griffins are going to be replaced with storks in the next edition. Is that what I'm hearing? Spoilers?
Yes. The new Circle War Beast confirmed. I guess we're a day off on April Fools, but close enough.
Confirmed with 3 exclamation points. Storks, totally in Circle of Boros. Excellent. John, you've got the next one.
No,
Do
you
I really? I thought you did.
No, you
Oh,
do.
no, I do.
drunk
I do.
man.
Okay. So, explain to me, we talked a little bit about this during Adepticon. And we talked about some of the differences between SR 2017 and our SR 2016. Why are, in your opinion, the scenarios changing?
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's an opinion. I'm one of the guys that gets to make the scenarios. But one of the things that we're trying to do in SR 2017 is remove that scenario of victory that can be very abrupt from games. So things like when Haley 2 walks up and she will score 5 points in 2 turns, basically by turn 3. We're trying to remove that kind of feeling where there's someone playing specifically for the scenario just to stop the opponent from playing the game, essentially, because we want to promote more games of War Machine rather than kind of gaming the scenario system with certain control casters. So that's one of the reasons why they're changing.
Well, and you and I talked a little bit about this at Adepticon, Will, is that some of the scenarios had grown to be somewhat artificial feeling. That it was you were playing to get things to places necessarily than to play the game. And by the way, I just want to mention the fact we're over $1,300, bitches. So I'm putting my clothes on. Oh my God, I'm so happy. I couldn't fucking. So who's my most valuable player? Our most valuable player is Kirk Beck. Thank God for you, Kirk. Thank you for helping me. I'm not giving any more fucking stretch goals that involve me removing pieces of clothes. I'm cold and I've been cold for quite some time. I don't even know where my shirt is. Oh God. All right, there's my.
Too funny. I can't.
There's my shirt.
Oh.
All right, so there we go.
What if I joined late?
Oh man, this is only the start.
This
know,
isn't
I'll
even
do-
as bad as it got.
I'll do anything to
No,
help
I'm at the
kids
beginning
with.
of the end here.
I'll do anything to help kids with fucking diseases. I'll tell you what.
That's fair.
A noble effort, John.
Yep. So the I don't give a shit. I'd sit around nude with if I was helping kids or not. So anyway, so I agree with you. Oh well, the thing that I've kind of noticed as we've gone around the corner here with 2016 and literally since probably 2012 even, we've had very little innovation on the steamroller, and nothing much has changed since we had dedicated objectives, to be honest. And I think that something new to kind of perk up the meta is a good thing.
I certainly agree with you. I think we've got a lot of great stuff coming in 2017, and that should be into CID in probably 2 weeks-ish, if everything goes as planned, maybe 3. But I think we've got a good shakeup here. You're going to see some very familiar things. Scenarios are going to be harder to win, but not impossible. And you're going to see a lot of different stuff happening where at the moment, because scenarios are they're very black and white at the moment. Like you either win or you don't on scenario. And now that we have our game length in terms of turn length, which may or may not end up being random, depending on how the CID goes.
Sure.
But there will be a turn length, and if the game goes to that turn length, CPs will be used as a tiebreaker. It means that those little incremental scores that you didn't care about before are now incredibly important. And when we were at Adepticon, we were trying out these different scenarios. And some people were just ignoring a flag, and their opponent would go up 2 or 3 CPs, and they were like, oh, well, this doesn't matter. And then they would get to the end of the game, and they would be crushing it on attrition, but because they let them score a couple CPs in the beginning, without ever really committing to do it themselves, they ended up in a situation where at that end of game, they could lose the game very easily because that person went up early.
Yeah.
So you do have to play these scenarios a little differently, and it'll probably take 5 or 10 games for a lot of people to really grasp the difference between a lot of these scenarios and how they played in 2016. But I promise you that once you do get there and you do understand what's happening and how they've changed, most people I think are going to be really excited about it.
John,
And it seems like you need to do something like this every once in a while. It's like a car model year. Every once in a while, you need to go like, we've had this exact style of car with minor tweaks for years. We need to go crazy and change it up a bit. I like that.
Well, certainly, and it's going to emphasize different models that used to be powerful or not powerful in SR 2016 are now going to have a use. We're seeing internally a lot more flanking units, things with ambush, that kind of stuff is all much more relevant to the game, and they're much more
Dogs.
Bog Trog ambushers, absolutely. And then all these team forces that are giving ambush now. Ambush has become a very relevant rule in these scenarios because so many of the elements are pushed out towards the edges of the board.
makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. You know, as you look at how things have gone so far, Will, and you've talked about how maybe playing scenario is a different philosophy than maybe it has been in the past. Do you see that armies are skewing more towards assassination bent? I mean, if you look back at the history of War Machine, there have been assassination lists and there have been maybe attrition lists and things like that. Do you feel like this version of SR moves the game back towards assassination in some respects?
I mean, it is kind of one of our goals to give assassinations that time to occur, right? Because when you played against Haley, sometimes you got forced into an assassination because you didn't really have a choice. So in that respect, I don't think assassination lists ever really left, whether it be Haley, Denny 2, like any of those old control casters from Mark II, and some of them still function in Mark III. But the hope is that now, by giving assassination lists, these ways to contest objectives without like going directly into the opposing army and having to play an attrition game. So like you dominate dominate doesn't exist anymore in 2017, but you control your own flags with your casters and stuff, or you can control these other scenario elements. By scoring points, you slow down your opponent winning. And then that can give you the time to set up the assassination, or the time for them to mess up for you to get into that assassination. And then we're also hoping that because scenarios are not as black and white as they used to be, that will encourage people to play less specifically for scenarios and actually play the game of War Machine, where you have to kill your opponent's models, and you have to try and kill their warcaster, or you have to try and control entire areas of the board so that you can get up on scenario points.
Makes a lot of sense. John, you had a question.
Yeah, my question is how's the proper way for us to give Privateer Press feedback on the CID and such?
Sounds like we're going a little away from SR 2017, so I'm going to take a little more general as well.
Sure.
But
yeah,
in general, so for Grimkin or SR 2017 or the battle engines, once they do start, telling us that you don't like something is great. Telling us why you don't like that thing is incredibly important. Because like saying, hey, I don't really like this scenario. Fine. Why don't you like that scenario? Oh, well, I don't like it because it makes me have to split up my forces so much, and I really prefer playing 5 Fury Warlocks. I'm like, okay, well, that's something we can work with. Maybe we can pull the scenario zones a little closer to the center. Maybe we can move where the flags are so that it's a little easier to get your caster onto them while also keeping your battle group in your control area. So why is a very important thing when giving feedback. Not just I liked it or I didn't like it, or and it's even worse when you say something like this was dumb. because that could mean anything,
Yeah,
right?
I hear you. So
this scenario was stupid. Why was it stupid?
well, you know,
Right,
So you guys-
is even worse than I did or didn't like it, right? Because at least when I did or didn't like it, I can tell why. Like I can read into what you're saying, but when you say something is stupid, like that could really go either way, right? You
yeah,
can say like this is overpowered, or this is underpowered by it being stupid. So, being clear and precise in what you did or did not like is very important, and then making a suggestion that stays inside of the bounds that we have given you, very important, for how we could address the issues that you had. And what I mean by the staying within the bounds that we have given you is things like Murder Crows in Grimkin should be a fast flanking unit. They have ambush in one of the theme forces, so don't say make him speed 5 and armor 18, right? Like that.
Makes
That's
sense.
not the point of that unit.
yeah.
So stay inside the concepts that we give and give your feedback that way. I think is incredibly important.
You know, if I
So,
could,
so you want constructive criticism that is, relevant to the theme of the unit or element being play tested, I guess.
Correct. So like in the case for Steamroller, we showed off a new scenario at Adepticon, which has a circle in the middle and then 2 rectangles and 2 flags on the sides of the table.
Yep.
If you say, hey, just put all that stuff in the middle, like that's not going to work for us, because one of the goals of that scenario is to force people to spread out and to force people into interesting decisions for which type of scenario element they want to try to control or contest. So by saying like, hey, just put the flag in the zone on the other side, like that's not really what we're hoping for here. So
makes sense. Well, one of the things that I think that we all, those of us that have been playing since Mark 1 have looked back on with the Mark 2 playtest was that we think we got a very much better understood game when Mark 2 actually came forward. And with the CID that we have going on now, one of the things that we all hope that who understand kind of how playtests go is that with the increase in the number of people who are playing the game, that we're going to get some surprises or some things that didn't necessarily occur to the design team that have shown themselves with the increased number of people who are playing the game. In your opinion, Will, the things that you've seen so far on Grimkin, or maybe, to be very honest, if you can't say something, please don't. That's not what we're interested in. What we're interested in is philosophically, what has been a takeaway from this process that maybe wasn't expected from the CID that you've gotten that's been super positive and awesome?
Well, I mean, people have found things that we didn't particularly think of. And that's been awesome. Like that's exactly what we're trying to do in CID. We've had several, none are particularly coming to mind immediately, but
It's fine.
there were interactions with things that we were like, oh, I hadn't really thought about that, and it allowed us to find those things and fix them before they became issues in the grand scheme of things. And with the dev talks specifically, which I think have been absolutely amazing, we've been able to really guide some of the conversations that are happening on those CID forums and really pull people in and talk with them very plainly. Like, I don't know, I feel like we can be a lot more personal in situations like that. So we can be like, hey, well, I think this is the developer. How does that affect you guys as players? What do you guys think of this scenario or these models together? Or how do you feel about how these rules interact and stuff like that? And I think that's been absolutely incredible in the CID development and how we've been able to do all of this.
I'm really excited about this stuff because if you look at the Grimkin, if some of the changes that you've made in the Grimkin hadn't been there, maybe it wouldn't have been as much fun for the people who are going to get the Grimkin eventually. And
Absolutely.
And that just means more fun for everybody, and that's really exciting.
Absolutely. I think it's giving us, by being able to receive this feedback without being locked into rules already, we can modify these things. And one of the I think completely valid complaints we receive a lot is that we haven't been able to bring up a lot of the underpowered units or the less used units inside of some factions. And I feel like through CID, we're going to be able to do that. And specifically with Grimkin, we've already done that. People were like, these things are underperforming, or we don't like these because of this. This caster isn't as great as he could be because this really holds them back. We've been able to address those things. And I think overall we've come out with an incredibly balanced and strong faction. We still got a couple weeks left, so it's not even over yet. But
Yeah.
I think Grimkin are in a fantastic place at the moment.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see them in the wild once we're all done and see how it all goes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Who's next up here? I think, Gonzo, you've got the next question? Gonzo?
Sorry, my headset went out for a second.
No
What
problem.
was the thing?
Do you have the next question there, buddy?
Well, I mean, he kind of went into it and you went into it too about in Mark II when we did the open beta to the CID, and he was saying we're getting, I believe you said we're getting better feedback because in the Mark II open beta it was just like, here's everything,
Good
go
one.
for it. Yeah, exactly. But with the CID you can actually narrow it down. If I'm getting this is what the point of this is.
Certainly, and it's one of the things of the dev talks because we were worried in this last week we did a dev talk on Old Witch 2 and 3 because we were worried about her power level, and people were like, well, she's not super exciting to play and she's good, but she's not quite there. So we tweaked her a little bit in a dev talk, put it up, got a lot of great feedback on that, and now we know that we're on the right track. So I think being able to do things like that is only a great thing for the game. I think we only go up from there.
I agree.
Fantastic. So, one of the things funny about working with privateers, you have to submit your questions. And so we love the fact that we've kind of progressed as a podcast to the point where we can have you on here, Will, and I'm super excited to have you on here. How far in advance of a CID psych... I'm going to read this because this is a question that was asked and that kind of good stuff, and it's awesome. It doesn't sound like something I would say, so I don't want people to think for a second. But how far in advance of a CID cycle will the community know about it? So we were told about the upcoming Bane Knights, which I don't have a fucking clue about, theme entering the CID a few weeks earlier. Is this going to be a norm? And is there anything we can do about fucking the Bane Knights early? Is there anything we can do about completely making them worthless? Because I hate Crix as a person.
Well, I'm going to guess that last bit was not part of your approved question, John. But
Okay, so don't answer that part, but I had to say it anyway.
As far as the announcements for when and which models and theme forces, etc., will be put into CID, honestly, I have no idea how that goes out. That's all into marketing.
That's cool.
We kind of go through and we have like a big document of things that we want to touch on at some point, and we have, of course, our release schedule, our internal release schedule that is not public to you guys. So we kind of know some of the basics, but really we leave it up to marketing for when and how they're going to tell you guys when these things are going to happen.
Yeah.
And as far as using CID to try to get at Crix, that is not our goal as developers. So submitting feedback that is less than helpful, perhaps, is not going to go well for your forum account.
But I will tell you that making battle engines super awesome is something I'm okay with, because I think battle engines are amazing, and I wish they saw more table time. So a CID around them seems super legit and totally sweet, and I'm all invested in that, and can't wait to see what new and exciting things. If the Crix battle engine is going to get some super sweet stuff, who knows what's going to come for other people, and I'm very excited about that.
I think some people are going to be really happy about what goes on with their battle engines. So.
Yeah, that's super legit and totally sweet. I'm very, very, very super excited about that. Now, John, you have a question for Will, do you not?
I do. So I'm going to rephrase this a little bit. Do you have any suggestions on a way we can get our communities at our local FLGSs involved with the CID?
I think as we put more generic models into it, so I believe, off the top of my head, every faction's battle engine is changing in some way. Some of them are very minor, some of them are pretty major. But I think as we open it up into more and more factions and stuff, more people will get involved automatically. I do think if you want to do like a specific night a week where your people can come into the store and try different things, and then you can compile all of your information and submit it as one feedback on the forums, I think that would be awesome. And as a previous game store owner, I think something like that would be a really cool event to run.
So let me throw an idea at you that we had. Obviously, I'm sure you'll have an opinion. One of our guys wanted to use Grimkin in our most recent tournament. We said no, but what are the thoughts of having a tournament and in advance, as soon as it's announced, going, we're going to allow whatever is in the CID to be used in this tournament?
I think as long as you're very clear on that and let people know ahead of time, that's fine.
Yeah, crystal clear.
In general, I think using CID stuff in tournaments is probably not the best idea. It's very prone to change. Like it could change the week before the event. It could change, I mean, depending on when your event is, it could change like 2 days before the event. Yeah. So it's difficult for players to keep up with CID. And we definitely don't want to push CID on people that don't want to play with CID things. So I would suggest in events that you're running, in tournament leagues, in tournaments, anything like that, not allowing CID stuff.
Okay, that's actually good. I didn't think about changing right before the tournament as a thing. So that is good.
Let me ask you this, Will. When you're sitting down and you're thinking about your CID list and you're thinking about how to build a list for a CID experience, you're going to be doing some play testing. Are you looking at the list of things that you have in front of you and attempting to build the most broken-ass thing you can, or is there a philosophy that you're trying to wrap your head around that when you're building that list? Which way do you go? Are you going for max, min-max sort of thing, or are you looking for more of a design philosophy that you're trying to accomplish?
I mean, I think it depends on what I'm testing.
Okay.
And where, like, in our internal cycle we are. When we're at the very beginning of our cycles, we're like, how can we break this as hard as possible, right? Because
Makes
we're
sense.
looking at a whole bunch of new rules and everything, and interactions. So, like, does this stuff function? Is kind of the most important thing. And when I say function, I mean, like, for example, we just put up in the newest CID, we put up a Cursed, which is a new Arcana card for Grimkin. And it says, its original wording said, everything loses construct, and it did a bunch of other stuff too. We didn't really, like, one of the things that we are kind of doing in CID right now is, like, how much can we get away with? So, like, we didn't really worry about interactions just yet. We're like, the community will find it, and we'll kind of go through it as well. And pretty much immediately, somebody was like, well, what happens with construct war beasts that have a threshold stat of dash? Like,
oh, shit.
How does that work?
Yeah.
And the answer is it
doesn't.
It doesn't. Like, there's no rule that exists for that, so we don't know how that works.
That's awesome.
People are like, well, I would assume it's the same as 0. I'm like, well, you can't do that.
No, that doesn't work at all.
It's dash. So how do I threshold check with a dash? And so we just had to immediately change a Cursed, right? But that's the kind of stuff that we're looking for at the very beginning.
What
and then
awesome feedback, though.
No, it was great. Like we had thought of all sorts of other stuff, like all sorts of feats and everything that went into that. And just nobody had touched on circle constructs yet. Whatever. Cool. And if it turns out that this becomes too much of an issue by things losing undead and construct with other things, we'll pull the card, we'll make a new one. It's not a big deal. But I think it was really cool that the community basically instantly found an interaction that we had not touched on in the, like, 2 days before we put it out.
Awesome.
Because we took all the feedback from our dev talk about the cards, and we made about 5 or 6 different ones. We might be cycling those through in the next couple weeks, seeing what people think of the different Arcana cards. So that's kind of the beginning of our internal playtest, and then we move on into is this stuff fun? Like, do you enjoy playing with these models? Are there interactions interesting and cool? And then, of course, we wrap it up with is this stuff balanced? Like, Nayslayers, I think when I started working at Privateer Press, were pound 9 instead of 7 armor piercing, and they just killed everything. So, like, that obviously
Yeah. Wow.
So we had all sorts of little things like that where we had to take things and tone them down or bring them up. And CID has really helped with that process because we get so many more games now. Like, I can play 10 games a week or whatever at HQ or 12 games a week, but hundreds of people playing hundreds of games every week is going to be way better than whatever I can do.
Man, that is so awesome to hear from you, Will, because getting all that extra data, and as long as it is presented to you in a constructive and awesome way so that you have it to be able to work from is just great. I mean,
Exactly.
it's amazing that all that extra power that you have as a developer, I imagine.
It's incredible, right? Because we can sit down and we can take our experiences from our, I don't know, 100 games or whatever of Grimkin that I've played in the office, maybe more. I don't know, I don't count. But however many games of Grimkin I've played in the office, and then I can take their feedback and they're like, oh, well, this and this and this happened. And I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. This is how this all works.
Yep.
So being able to take other people's experiences and then apply them to my own has done wonders for what we can do for the game.
Yeah.
And it's truly, truly incredible.
I'm so glad that you're there during this time where we're seeing kind of a lot of looking at the game, a lot of looking at the models, and having that attitude that you have where we can really build upon the data that you've got and really making this a better game. And I have to admit, in Mark III, I've had more fun playing War Machine than probably any time since I've been playing the game. It's fun. It is genuinely a fun time to sit down across the table from a friend of mine and play a game and get to play crazy shit and have fun with it. It's super fun. I think you guys are doing great.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that very much.
I want to, before we move on to more questions, because I know we got more questions, I want to recognize 5 of the patrons because we haven't done that this hour.
Dope.
I want to thank, first off, Sarah Jane Chu. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know who Sarah Jane Chu is, she's from Scotland. She's super amazing. She's a roller derby girl who also plays War Machine because that only makes sense. She also plays bass guitar. Hello. Could there be anything more perfect than that? She's super amazing. Sherwin Matthews, he's karmically aligned with this podcast big time. He's a writer. He's over at the Guild Ball. He's doing his Steam Forge these days. Super love that guy. Tip of the hat to him. Kevin Bashford. Ladies and gentlemen, you are going to see some painting from Kevin later on. That guy has eye problems, serious vision issues. And you're going to look at his models and you're going to be super amazed at what a talented guy that guy is. Also makes some of the best battle reports on the internet. Super love that guy. And then there's this other guy, total dickhead, David Carl. We don't know who that is. Who even knows who that guy is? He's the kind of guy that would donate $1 less than it would take to get your clothes back on. That fuckhead. Anyway.
Oh, it's awesome.
And then later we've got,
old.
and also Pablo Borges. We love that guy, Pablo. He donates stuff to us. He's keeping the lights on here. Pablo, super high fives to you. We love you. Glad that you're a crony. We have a few more to go. We're going to get them in the course of the next couple segments. Super love these guys. They're patrons. They keep the lights on. Hey, Ron.
Woohoo!
Ron.
Oh, I'm out of beer. That's like a travesty. Hey, you know what that means, right?
Get more beer.
Adventure time to the refrigerator.
Okay, so I'm looking here at the questions that we've actually cleared because we went off the reservation there for a little while, but I think it was positive. I think that nobody's going to have a problem with what we had to say. By the way, Will, I think that Adepticon was an important time for this podcast and for Privateer, for our relationship, and I'm super happy with where things are headed. I was kind of a dickhead, and we're fixing that. So hats off to giving me a second chance, and hats off to looking at things in a more positive outlook. So super looking forward to that. But there's a very important question here, and that is, Will, we're looking, how has the response to the CID for Grimkin and SR 2017 been? In your opinion, if you had to look at on a scale of Trump to awesome, how would you rate the CID response and the SR 2017 response?
I mean, I would say awesome. I'm probably a little biased, though. I mean,
okay.
It would make sense. It's kind of what I'm doing every day at the office right now is going through the CID, going through all of the theory and discussion posts, going through all the battle reports, starting the dev talks, engaging in the dev talks and everything. So I'm very connected with it. But in general, we've seen a lot of great things on social media, on Facebook, Twitter. We've been poking our heads into different forums and stuff. majority of things people have to say seems very positive. And it's not even necessarily things like, hey, I think Grimkin are really cool, because some people don't like Grimkin, and that's fine.
Whatever.
But it's things like, I think it's really cool that the developers are sitting down and talking with us about why they're doing things. Or
Yeah.
I'm excited for the chance to work on my faction when it comes around.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the best thing that we could possibly hope for, is that people get invested in what's going into CID, and realizing that one of the main reasons we did this stuff was to bring the community in on it. We want to make sure that everyone feels like they're playing the game that they want to play.
Transparency is so
very important.
empowering. Transparency is so empowering. It's so much fun to be a part of it.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's what we want, right? Like, we want each individual person to feel like they contributed and they helped, and you know what? They did contribute, and they are helping, because every single post that goes onto the CID forums, I have read.
That's super cool. That's super cool. Gonzo, I think you've got a question.
You kind of mentioned this already. Like big surprises that players have found that you didn't find. You were like, holy crap, we got to fix this. Is there anything that's been like a big, huge surprise to you that the players have done that as a team y'all haven't?
Something that really broke it, that you didn't see coming.
There is one that actually never made it to the forums. It was submitted through Facebook, actually,
Interesting.
to us, which was Frightmare spam in Grimkin. So I think they were running 14 Frightmares originally with King of Nothing, and that was one that we didn't really piece together necessarily, but it has been quite powerful in testing. So we're still working on tweaking through how exactly we need to change Frightmares so that maybe 14 isn't the best number. Maybe 6 is the best number.
I mean, and I agree with you, because someone said something. I went, "What the heck?" Yeah, okay. So hopefully somebody said something and did. I mean, because the purpose is this is not everybody can see every single broken pattern or broken model or find that little tweak that changes something, everything. And that's the reason why I'm glad that y'all are doing the CID, because you coming from being in the tournament scene and seeing this stuff has got to be able to really be good for you working there.
Oh, definitely.
Because
I mean, I have a different outlook than a lot of the other developers do on the game, and I think getting as many different angles as possible is very important. And CID only gives us more of those angles.
Good.
But
I'm super excited about that.
What's interesting about finding what you found, though, Will, is that by finding a niche that had, let's say, 16 of these Frightmares, that if you find that and it's totally broken and wrong, then somebody is maybe invested in 16 Frightmares, or a whole bunch. Unfortunately, a whole bunch of people has invested in that, and then it has to change for the betterment of the game, and then they're pissed off. And how does that make a good game? Because you've had to move the cheese in order for the betterment of the game, and that cheese never should have existed.
Exactly. Like, I know a lot of people got upset with us when the Mad Dog nerf came through, and all of these other changes that we've had to make that have not necessarily invalidated, but certainly made lists less strong, and removed efficiency from models. But I mean, would you rather play in a game where you have a list like that is not functioning how we intended it to and is kind of smothering other options? Or would you rather have it this way? And unfortunately, we went with we would rather have the healthier game. And we know we stepped on some toes, and we're not happy about that. Like, let me be completely clear that we are very upset that we had to do that, and that we are not planning to do that stuff in the future if we can avoid it. And that's one of the things that hopefully CID will do, is massively cut down on the amount of errata or the amount of changes that we have to make. Because if the new models go through these test cycles, we can find these problems before they become a problem, and well before someone has spent hundreds of dollars buying these models that we then had to change.
And let's be honest, folks. This Privateer is a company that is staffed by gamers and by good people who want to see people have fun. And mistakes are a human thing, and let's give them the chance to make the mistake. And if they make a mistake that, they do their level best. They're humans, you know, and maybe Mad Dog spam wasn't the best thing for the game, but by God, give them a chance to make that mistake. And you know, Will, what I've seen with the CID is the honest devotion of Privateer to try to do the right thing by its player base. And that's where we stand. I think, John, I think you stand for that too, and Gonzo, is that we want to give you the chance to give us the game that you want it to be, and the CID is going to give us a chance to give a better game out of the deal.
That is truly our hope, that we can take the game that we envision and the game that we love and we enjoy so much and make sure that everyone else gets to play that game as well.
Yeah, super sweet. John, you had a question here. This was a free-form add your own question because
Gonzo made a tactical mistake there and let me have my own question there.
Direction's a thing.
So, Will, this is not a question for you as necessarily a PP employee, but as a former competitive gamer.
Sure.
We talked about this earlier in our cast several hours ago. I made a comment that I feel that with the rise of pre-measuring and putting proxy bases all over the place, that time turns may be a superior format to Deathclock to keep the game flowing and being exciting for both players. Do you have any thoughts on that?
It is an interesting direction to go with it. But I know, and I can't talk about it too much because I don't know all of the details for it, but I know that Hungerford has put guidelines into Steamroller 2017 for what is appropriate use of measuring devices and proxy bases and all that kind of stuff.
Interesting.
I'd heard a rumor about that, but I didn't want to put you on the spot with it.
Yeah, I don't know the specifics on that, honestly. I have no idea. I just know that there is a section in Steamroller that addresses things like that so that you don't have, like, 20 proxy bases and 5 measuring sticks and like all this stuff all over the table, because
makes sense.
That's once again, that's not the game that we want to play. And I'm sure it's not the game that a lot of other people want to play. This, like, before someone completely takes all this out of context, this does not mean that you cannot use the measuring sticks and you cannot use
no.
That's, I don't know the specifics, but there are guidelines in place to stop extreme abusive situations of those things.
For gosh sakes, Will, I mean, you guys have sponsored products out there that, you know, clearly you support the use of these things. Would Mr. Hungerford, when it's appropriate, be, you know, do you think he'd be willing to come on here and talk to our people about these changes and help us to kind of understand the spirit behind what's kind of going beyond here?
I mean, I doubt he would be opposed if you could get it to line up on his weekend.
Well, we'll see if we can make that happen, because Will is a super sweet guy, and I think that it would be very interesting for our listeners to hear at least the spirit of it, because, you know, sometimes the rules of everything gets a little bit convoluted, and we want to make sure that he has an opportunity to speak kind of what the thought process is behind these things and help us understand those things.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Because I got a set of those sticks, and they're super sweet. I love them.
No, we talked about it earlier. I don't mind measuring sticks. I don't mind proxy bases. I just feel like waiting 30 minutes for my turn to come back around hurts the game in general.
Fair enough.
So I had this problem, and I said, this is my idea for a solution. I'm trying to be constructive.
Cool.
Absolutely.
You know?
And great feedback. Like, that's what we want, right? Like, if you have an issue with something, I want to hear the issue. I want to hear why it's an issue, and then how you would solve it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's perfect.
So I've got an issue, and I'm going to bring it up right here, because it's
sure want to go there, John? I mean,
fuck yeah, bitches.
Okay.
I got nothing but time, and this is my goddamn show. All right. So
remember that report we were trying to bring back up?
Yeah.
And get back with PP.
All right, here it comes.
Here we go.
So, Conveyor Belt Sushi, best in Seattle. Where are you going?
Oh, I've only been to one. It's called Sushi Me, and it's pretty good.
Where the fuck is it?
Oh,
you're wrong.
It's in Redmond.
It's in East Renton. Really?
Redmond.
Oh, Redmond. I was like, Renton. There's fucking nothing good in Renton. Please help me. East Redmond. Okay, well, Sushi
I've never
Me.
been to Renton.
Yeah, I don't blame you. It's a cesspool. So I would recommend to you, if you are in the downtown area, I would go to Circle C Sushi, which is right near the convention center. If you're going to PAX, I highly recommend it. I would also recommend, if you're down on the south side of town, there's a place called down in Tequila that makes a very good conveyor belt sushi as well. So, Will, if you are game the next time I'm in Seattle, I will take you down to Kent, or Tequila in this respect, and I will introduce you to the same conveyor belt sushi that I brought the beer machine people to. It is super legit and totally sweet.
I'm in.
Awesome. You and your wife, of course. I want to bring your wife along as well.
Certain.
I can't bring your dogs with but I would, because I love dogs.
They're too big, John. They're too big.
They're so big. They're so huge. Anyway, so Will, I can't thank you enough for being a part of our show here and helping to raise funds here for PWMJ All Day for Juvenile Diabetes. Thank you, and thank Privateer Press for having you with us today.
Well, thank you guys for having me as well, and it was great. And hopefully another time.
Oh,
absolutely.
I can't imagine that not happening. Well, so folks, if you're playing along at home and you have the home edition of this game, that means that we are up to Beer Machine. Fuck.
Let's steel ourselves for this, guys.
Okay, we gotta get down in the dojo. We gotta get for reals on this, because Beer Machine's coming online. I'm gonna go find my inner peace, and we're gonna shut this down for a little couple minutes. So we have to be strong, ladies and gentlemen. The next hour of your life is pretty much gonna be dick jokes and booze. So we're gonna do a special episode about sour beers, because sour is supposed to be okay, I guess. And Will, once again, thank you very much, and we'll be looking forward to having you back on the show, of course. Maybe we'll have Mr. Hungerford, because my boy has a lot of questions about the next phase of Colossal Wrestling. He's super into it, and I know that Mr. Hungerford will be into that as well.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you very much. For those of you playing along at home, we are Painting with Menoth John. We are going to be right back in a couple minutes. So continue to watch that special screen that we put up when we go offline, because it's better than, I don't know, masturbation? Anyway, so here you go. No, masturbation's pretty good. Anyway, so on behalf of the rest of the team, I am Menoth John. We'll be right back.